Hi everyone, my name is Alyssa Geralds, and today I will be presenting to you on Alphabet Incorporated. So this is ABC, how Alphabet Incorporated approaches OD. So to start off, I'm going to go over a little bit of the background information. So do you know your Alphabet Inc? So the industry that this falls under is a conglomerate that's really a multi-industry company, primarily focused on data processing, as well as information storage, information management. This is a publicly traded company under two different symbols with the stock market. So that's GOOGL, which is Class A. That's essentially a classification that has voting rights. So that's aimed at longer term investments. Then we've got Class C, which is GOOG. Typically, that's reserved for beginning investors with less money to put up and seeking shorter term gains. This was founded in October 2015, and the creation of this is really interesting because this was actually during the restructuring of Google. So this is headquartered in Mountain View, California, with a little over 130,000 employees as of Q4 of last year. The revenue at this point is about $183 billion. This is the fourth largest technology company by revenue and known as one of the world's most valuable companies. And lastly, their operating income's right about at $41 billion as of 2020. And over to the right, as you see, their most recognizable, their most valuable player is obviously Google. When we're talking about a tech industry, a company competing in that tech environment, that is a very dynamic and changing environment. So the trends that are typically presenting themselves these days are artificial intelligence, robotic automation, blockchain, privacy, storage in clouds, virtual reality, big data, 5G, and especially as of lately, cybersecurity with everybody working from home. Their competitors are very recognizable as well. So this is Microsoft, Facebook, IBM, SAP, Salesforce, Amazon, and even Apple. One of the very first things that I noticed with looking into Alphabet Inc. and how it was created was how huge of a trans-organizational change this was displaying. So in August of 2015, Google announced plans to restructure. And essentially what Google did was create a wholly owned subsidiary called Alphabet Incorporated. Then Alphabet Incorporated created another wholly owned subsidiary that was then merged with Google, allowing Alphabet Incorporated to take over as that parent company. And the reason this was really done primarily was to create more management scale. This was a trans-organizational change to create a parent company that can run a lot of different companies independently, even without them being completely related. This was an effort to allow Google to focus on really what it does best and allowing the remaining subsidiaries to assume a lot of that risk and innovation and to really keep Google relevant through dominance in all those other fields. Alphabet Incorporated was designed to essentially encompass everything from A to Z. And I actually thought it was quite clever how they captured that in their web address. So if you would want to find them on the web, it's abc.xyz, which I thought was really interesting. Now, to really help provide a picture of the companies that are involved here, this is a conglomerate that was born entirely by mergers and acquisitions. So underneath the Alphabet umbrella, there's Calico, which is a biotech company, Capital G, which is private equity firm, DeepMind for artificial intelligence, Urban Tech Innovation, Sidewalk Labs, Internet Services through Google, Venture Capital through GV, Google Fiber providing internet via fiber, Wing, which is one of the semi-secret, actually I have one of the websites wrong here, so I'm gonna have to fix that. Semi-secret R&D is actually X, which is pictured right here. Verily, which is a life science research organization. Waymo, focused on autonomous driving. And then Wing, as I previously mentioned, is actually drone delivery. So these are the main subsidiaries under the Alphabet umbrella. But just to show you from a history perspective how instrumental mergers and acquisitions has been for not only Alphabet, but prior to the transorganizational change, Google was very, very busy with their acquisitions. So showing here, there's a list of mergers and acquisitions going back to the creation of Google, which was back in 1998, and some of the first started in 2001. So as I keep scrolling here, you see over the years how Google has basically chosen to take companies that were providing services for them for various reasons and decided to bring them internal and really try to vertically integrate as much of their business as possible. And as we get into the 2015 range, I'm going to keep scrolling here. It's over, I believe, 200 acquisitions that are really what have developed the Alphabet Incorporated company into what it is today. 2015 is when Alphabet was created, so there's still been a pretty significant number of companies brought under that Alphabet umbrella, bringing us up to Fitbit in January 2021, so very recent. Now to go over some of the keys to success for Alphabet Incorporated's mergers and acquisitions. I saw immediately when looking at table 20.1, the major phases and activities in mergers and acquisitions, that one of the primary things needed during that change management was establishing a clear and strategic vision. And I think that's where a lot of companies really fall to the wayside and struggle to bring together various companies that initially had very different missions, different values, likely very similar, which is what they would be looking for in that pre-combination phase, but still requiring true integration there. So Google's mission had always been to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. You can tell that Alphabet Incorporated tried to maintain that sentiment. So they are essentially focused on a core mission of organizing the world's information, which is something truly stemmed, from the Google mission. But removing the universally accessible and useful component, because a lot of their subsidiaries aren't something that's necessarily going to be universally accessible. For example, the biotechnology and autonomous driving and things like that, that it didn't quite fit that mold. So that really helped them drive a core mission while still allowing their subsidiaries to focus on their own missions. So self-driving cars, sending people to the moon, all the different missions that can help drive the different industries forward without being limited by that strategic vision. Another component that I thought that they'd done really well was implementing quickly and incorporating a lot of direct communication. So right about at the time that the restructuring was announced, the new CEO of Alphabet Incorporated, Larry Page, posted a founder's letter. And that letter, this went out in investor relations, but it essentially brought together all the different CEOs. So Larry Page being the new CEO of Alphabet, and I'm probably not going to get these names completely right, but Sundar Pichai, CEO of Google. These are statements made by each of the CEOs of the different components that are contributing to this restructuring, and really providing a lot of information, digging deep into the purpose as to why this restructure why it's happening, where they want to go, even going into the details of how the stock would be impacted and how the shares would transition, to really make sure that those fears are really taken care of quickly. One of the things that I really thought was pretty powerful as Larry wrapped up the bottom of this letter, it was a combination of two letters between the two CEOs. I thought it was really great how he ended on a very positive, uplifting note that really they're excited about being ambitious, looking long-term, empowering great entrepreneurs and allowing these companies to flourish. The scale of investments, improving transparency, making Google even better, and ultimately improving the lives of as many people as they could. I thought that was a really strong leadership effort and movement through this letter that was really effective during a time of change. Now to flip over to the other side. So I thought that Alphabet Incorporated did a really, really great job at utilizing mergers and acquisitions to really diversify their portfolio and their options, and to build their business, and to really take a strategic change and drive that home. I thought they did a really nice job. On the flip side, the other component that I was seeing when searching this company was just numerous human resources and diversity related issues. So before I even dig into this slide, just to give you an idea of what I was seeing when I started researching was, I'm going to flip over to this one. So Alphabet Union files labor complaint alleging subcontractor banned workers from talking about pay. Hundreds of Google employees unionized, culminating years of activism. We built Google. This is not the company we want to work for. The Great Google Revolt. Google to pay $3.8 million over alleged discrimination against women and Asians. So it was overwhelming how many articles came right out the gate that were very recent. And then as I dug deeper, this was a really, really big repetitive issue that I've seen throughout the diversity and ethics, how that's been handled at Google and Alphabet Incorporated. What I saw was a workforce that was really struggling to be heard. And ultimately, we're seeing huge movements out of that right now. So anti-union Silicon Valley is, typically never supporting these white collar unions. And this is one of the very first successful ones that essentially it's Alphabet Workers Union affiliated with Communications Workers of America. It is only 800 of 130,000 employees as of February 2021. They're not really seeking employer involvement. They're not looking for Google or Alphabet Incorporated to meet them with a contract and to really go that true traditional union route. They're really just seeking to escalate concerns to leadership because they have gone years and years without being heard. And to just kind of go over again, a lot of the claims that we're seeing related to diversity and ethics, we kind of went over as I looked over the headlines in the news. So systematic pay and hiring discrimination for women and Asian Americans, contracted workers silenced regarding pay and workplace issues, retaliation for employee activism and union support, termination linked to employee discovery of bias in Google artificial intelligence language models, cover-ups linked to sexual misconduct, and silencing dissent. As I kind of dug into the work that we've been going through when it came to managing diversity and managing ethics, I saw the general framework for managing diversity and immediately saw a lot of issues as far as how Alphabet Incorporated had been handling a lot of their diversity programs and their response to any issues in the realm of diversity. So from a internal and external pressure standpoint, that's what's really driving, a lot of the decisions for the framework for diversity. And immediately I saw from a management perspective and priorities, as well as a strategic response, that these were huge weaknesses for the company because they're getting external pressures from compliance audits and getting things pointed out. Applicants to the company, their own competition and reports in the media. Meanwhile, they're also seeing increased internal pressures, really unsatisfied employees, their existing systems and programs that aren't meeting the needs, rising conflict because of that, which is resulting in some unionizing. What we're really seeing with the lack of an actual framework for managing diversity is they're ignoring concerns that are presented by their employees, which is creating a tense environment that does not encourage open discussion. It's reacting only when issues are externally reported or investigated, not being proactive. They're firefighting. They're waiting for something to be big enough that can impact the PR for the company, and then deciding to go and try and make that right. But really, even at that point, seems to be mostly settlement based versus actually changing any of the programs internally or trying to be proactive in that change. So really what I saw was a need for a collaborative path forward, with key needs really being employee input and participation. So when it comes to those management perspective and priorities, their programs and perspectives have to be influenced by the issues presented by employees, and these have to be updated continuously as situations change and as time goes on. And accountability, because as of right now, it doesn't seem like the subsidiaries or the overall company has much of an accountability for executive leadership to be supporting these diversity interventions. And one of the biggest components, I think, is strategic response. Really, it's been so reactionary, and ultimately to be proactive, you have to listen to employees, develop those programs based on that feedback, and really provide a comfortable environment to be able to continue sharing that to get ahead of any issues going forward. So the recommendations that I had for proactive change in the future was to really get that employee input through an AI summit, creating a safe environment for employees to come together and bring issues to light and address as a group in a safe environment without fear of retaliation. And then I was thinking, really, how could this be managed by the company having a group that's the mind and a group that's the body? And the way that I saw that was the diversity committee being the mind behind change. So a representative group from various areas of the business and various backgrounds to address the issues that will be presented during an AI summit, and follow through on the solutions to make sure that they're seen all the way through to fruition. And then I thought, from the body perspective, someone almost like, the only way I could think of it is almost like a real-time monitoring and accountability, kind of like a little police force within their organizations to help identify newly presented issues, be contacts for emergencies when those arise, an outlet for anonymous reporting, and really a resource for the diversity committee to identify up and coming issues that will need attention and need implemented into the existing programs. And ultimately, I think both teams would work together to, drive program changes and have conversations with leadership to ensure that support goes all the way to the top. And that's also going to include researching competitors for best practices and monitoring the news and media for upcoming issues. It's being proactive and not just sitting back and waiting for issues to arise and try to squash them when they do. I think that was really the biggest takeaway that I had when reading about any of the human resources or diversity or ethics issues that were being time and time again presented by Google employees and eventually Alphabet employees across all of their subsidiaries. And just to wrap up, there were, like I mentioned, a ton of OD concepts all over the news when it came to Alphabet Incorporated. And one that I thought was really interesting was an example of a strategic alliance intervention where Google Cloud and MongoDB were expanding their partnership. They'd already been working together with the new multi-year agreement to help customers accelerate application modernization. So they're working together on that. We kind of already covered the great Google revolt and the pay discrimination as well, but there are numerous examples if you would do any of that quick searching on your own. And then to wrap up, I just listed some of the references from things included. But really, thank you for taking the time to listen. This is a class that I've really enjoyed digging into and something that I think will be really, really helpful moving forward with intentions to be a manager, to lead an organization, and to really do that, putting my best foot forward. So thank you and have a great weekend.